Was the Terminator's actions at the end of T2 morally justified? Welcome to Intermerifica, New Mexico, the channel where we look at things of wonder from the perspectives of faith and reason, philosophy and theology. I'm your host, Daniel Kelly, and today we're looking at some of the wonders of the culture. One of the very best action movies, I think, is Terminator 2. It's really great on a number of levels, and we could go through those sometimes. But a part of that I want to look at that I was asked about recently that sometimes we overlook is the moral dilemma at the end of Terminator 2. So basically, in Terminator 2, there's a robot, or technically he's a cyborg, but that doesn't matter, but a robot, he's sent back in time and to defend humanity, and all this kind of stuff happens, but at the end, the horrible kind of post-apocalyptic future that he's from will come about, he thinks, and the main characters think, if he doesn't destroy himself. So there's this moral dilemma you've got attached to this character. He's a good character, he's a hero, but if he doesn't destroy himself, the technology that's in him might lead to a horrible apocalypse. And so the solution in the movie is he kills himself. And from a moral perspective, if we're looking through this and thinking through this, is that a moral action? Well, there's a couple questions to answer this. The first thing to look at, if we're going to see is that a moral action, is first, is the Terminator, the T-800, the robot guy, played by Arnold Schwarzenegger, is he a moral actor? Because if he's... so I think more likely in reality, if something like this were to come about, he'd just be a really advanced form of what we call AI, artificial intelligence, but it's not really intelligence at all. They're not rational at all. They're just running programs like Johnny Five. So if it's like that, if he's just then he has no moral culpability. There's no he to have moral culpability. It's just a computer running programs. So if a computer like that did something evil, who would be morally culpable? Well, it'd be the person who created it and programmed it. And if it was created by another machine, as this guy was, would be the guy who created that. And it'd go back till you get to a moral actor. And that's why it's kind of scary. That's why at the final judgment, we have our personal judgment at the end of our lives where God goes through with us all the stuff that we've done, good and bad. But at the final judgment, we also get judged for all the consequences of our actions. So that could be kind of scary, and that's why we need to put our trust not in ourselves, but in God. But I think it's very obvious from the movie that it assumes, for all the drama to happen and to matter, for the character relationships, it assumes that the robot, the T-800, is a moral actor. Or else the whole story doesn't really work if he's not a moral actor. So we're just going to assume, even though I don't think it's very likely in real life that you could have a moral actor like this, we're going to assume he is a moral actor. So if he is a moral actor, is it moral for him to kill himself so that these worst things, this apocalypse, doesn't happen? Well, the first thing, before we move to drastic things, and we're going to get to the drastic measures, I'm not convinced that characters went through what's the evaluation needed to be sure that him surviving would lead to this apocalypse. Because they're like, well, he has the technology that leads to this apocalypse. Well, great, he's one of the most powerful things on the planet. What's going to capture him? How are they going to get that technology? And even if they do get the technology from him, will it lead to them developing it correctly? Why can't he just go hide off on a desert island? Why can't he just go off in a place where they don't have the ability to backwards engineer his components? So first of all, they jump too quickly to, hey, I've got to do drastic measures, and we can never go to drastic measures unless they're warranted. But let's say that they did go through all that. So that's the first problem with their moral actions in this movie. I don't think they do the proper analysis to say, hey, drastic actions are actually warranted. So that's the first thing. But let's say the drastic actions are. So first we have to keep in mind that you can never do an evil action that good may come of it. So we can do something that will have an unintended evil consequence. We don't intend it. We'd be happy if that thing doesn't happen. An easy example of this is the people that jumped out of the Twin Towers knowing that they would probably die and they did, a lot of them, most of them, but they didn't intend that. If they lived, they'd be happy. They were just, their intention of their actions was to escape dying by this horrible fire that was going on in there. So that's morally justified, right? So you're not intending to die, you jump out, you can foresee that you probably will die, but you'd be happy if you lived. You're just trying to avoid the worst thing, the fire. So that's the principle of double effect. But the principle of double effect doesn't work if the good you're trying to get flows from the evil thing. For example, when the Allies dropped nuclear weapons on the Japanese, the whole point was to kill civilians so that, which is an evil, killing civilians is a grave, grave, grave evil, so that the good thing of the war stopping would happen. But they wanted the civilians to die. They didn't want, because that was the whole way to achieve the goal of ending the war, is they'll see the huge civilian toll that they'll end. That's an evil action, can never be justified. We can never ever do evil that good may come of it. So suicide is evil. Where does the Terminator's action fall into this? Well, I'd compare it to another theoretical situation that often comes up and is often asked by fans of fiction, where in The Lord of the Rings, when Elrond sees that Isildur is going to keep the ring, would he be justified in throwing him into Mount Doom? And yes, you could say he is justified, because if Elrond could have seen the evil, which it's not clear that he could have, that would come about from the One Ring and its great potential for evil, he could foresee that and want to get rid of that and not intend Isildur's death in throwing him. If Isildur survived and the ring was destroyed, okay, Elrond would be happy with that. So that would be a justified action if Elrond could see the great evil that the ring. He couldn't, and actually the actions he actually does in the book is actually the better moral action. But let's see how this compares. So this robot has something like the One Ring in him. It's his hardware and his software. All that stuff that makes up him, that allows him to think and live, is like the One Ring if someone else gets a hold of it. So he's got this item. So that's what he wants to destroy. That's the intention of his action in killing himself. But can he separate himself from his CPU, from his chip and stuff? Can he separate himself from his brain? Can he intend, yeah, if I could live somehow from this, that'd be great, as long as my CPU was destroyed? Is that like me thinking, yeah, I'd be happy if I lived as long as all my major organs were destroyed? I don't think that sounds right. I think that that's an integral part of him, that if it's destroyed, he doesn't exist anymore. So that would mean that he's committing suicide. And the only way to get to the good he wants of his technology being destroyed so that it can't be used to harm people is through the evil of suicide. So if that's the case, that's an evil. We're trying to get a good effect, not having Armageddon basically, through and this apocalypse, through an evil action, suicide. So that is not justified. Now, I'm not saying he'd be morally culpable for it, because obviously there's a lot of things hindering his ability to make a rational decision. They're doing it in the moment. There's a bunch of emotional things bearing down on him, if that can even affect a robot, but it seems kind of like it can, and all his programming might not be the best. So he's just doing the best with his programming. So he might not be morally culpable of it. He might be ignorant, equivalently to us being ignorant. But if he wasn't ignorant of it, yeah, it'd be an evil action to kill yourself for the good of trying, for any amount of good. You can't do an evil thing for any amount of good. I don't care how much good it is. And they didn't even do the time to see if drastic measures like this were even called for. So all in all, I like this movie, but I think we need to really think through the more dilemmas that movies present us with. And so the T-800, if he could have thought through it rationally, should not have killed himself at the end of Terminator 2. I hope you enjoyed that. You have a good day. God bless you.